All right, everybody, welcome back to Stories from a Mountain Town. This is your host, Tyler. With me today, I have Brad Boner, the Director of Visuals at Jackson Hole News and Guide. Welcome, Brad. Say hi to the nice people.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. And today, as always, we have some Snake River Brewing Paco's IPA, one of the favorites of the podcast and one of the favorites of everyone in Jackson. Here you go.
Indeed.
We're recording this in the middle of the day, but
Is it noon yet?
it is 12:07.
It is totally
We're good.
12:07. All right. Cheers, man.
Yeah, cheers. When Brad and I were, hi Mav. Mav just came over to check out the beers, and the cool thing about Paco's is it has a husky on the label. I think it's one of the guys who started the brewery's dog or something like that.
Yeah.
And Maverick had to come say hi. Hello, little boy. When Brad and I were messaging to get this set up, and I was telling him that this is what we usually do, have a couple beers in the podcast, and I was like, I know it's the middle of a day and whatever, you might be working, and he's like, I'd be hard-pressed to deny some free beers or something like that. So yeah, thanks for coming up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So, Director of Visuals, that's, as titles often are, that's a little vague. So what do you do as Director of Visuals?
So I've been at the News and Guide it'll be 16 years in May, and when I was originally hired, I was hired as the chief photographer, and that basically just oversees the photo department, and just with how the industry is developing and changing, we've added multimedia and video into the mix, and so as part of that, that kind of came into the under the umbrella of visuals, and so I'd say in the last 2 years or so, my title just changed to Director of Visuals to just kind of oversee everything that photo, video, anything that involves visual,
Kind of outside of the text or outside
sure,
of the stories.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So that would include like kind of the approval process of like, let's use these photos for this story or not those, and then also, and this kind of rolls into how we first met a little bit ago. You're actually out in the field, like taking pictures, getting for your own stories, and I think also I've sent you a couple like wildlife pictures that I've taken.
Sure.
Just to be like, hey, you use them if you want. So it's also like that part of it too, right?
Yeah. So for the most part, everything at the paper that involves photo and video gets funneled through me.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, part of my job is out actually making photographs and doing work to supplement our stories. Some of it's just driving around looking for enterprise pictures, and kind of working on my own photo essays and everything. But as the Director of Visuals, I would say a good chunk of my job is looking at other people's photos, looking at the other photographers' pictures, and working with the designers to see how those pictures are put on a page. So, it's not like we just take pictures and hand them over to the designers and they lay them out. There's definitely a process involved, and I'm standing right there with the designer a lot of the time, especially on some of the bigger spreads and section fronts and everything. Just trying to determine what the best picture is for any given story that we're working on.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very cool. And yeah, so how Brad and I first met, we can see the spot right over here through my back window. During the Saddle Butte fire that we were getting evacuated for, the main road to come up to our house is on kind of more the east side of town, and Taylor and I were on the west side of town at Whole Grocer. And the traffic was so bad they shut down Broadway to get over to that road.
Okay.
So we started trying to get over there, and the dogs were at home, and we're like, shit, we're not going to get there in time. So I ripped around and went up to this road Spring Creek, right? Spring Creek Road?
Yeah, the road up to...
The road to the Amangani.
Yeah.
Is what everyone will know it as. We get up there and there's a curve that's like pretty close to our house. We parked there and Brad was just pulling in also to take some pictures because you can see the big plume of smoke above the top of the hill and he's just like, I just remember you're like, are you all right? And I'm like, no, we're getting evacuated. Can you come help?
Yeah.
And it was just super cool. Okay, Bridget wants to join. Sorry. It was just super cool how it was just like you're just randomly there and offered to help us when we were just freaking out because we were like, our house is gonna burn down for sure. Like the fire, we saw the fire was just like exploding over the hill.
Right.
And then so we all ran to the house, got the dogs out, got some valuables, and then Brad helped us put a few things in our cars and we got out of there.
Yeah. I remember, it's that's happened to me a couple times, it's when these breaking news situations happen and, sometimes you're the first one there, sometimes you're the only one there. And you got to be a human being first, you have a job to do, but then at the same time, you really try to be a human being first. And especially in a community like this, we're all, part of the reason that I live in this community or, live in this area is because the community is so tight. And, first things first, we got to help each other out.
Yeah, definitely.
And if there was, I remember coming in here and, I remember saying like, load me up.
Yeah.
Give me something, give me something to carry. And I think I carried a bike for you and everything. And I remember like holding the bike and taking pictures at the same time. Cause I still have a job to do.
Yeah.
And so, you guys were kind of just doing your own thing. And I just remember like, picking up your bike. And I think there was like a small bag that I carried outside for you and threw in the car, but I was like taking pictures as I was doing that. So, yeah.
And one of them that got put in the article on the website looked really cool. It was like almost like it was a super wide angle lens, and it was like almost from a really low spot looking up at our house and us packing the car, and then you could see the smoke right behind it.
It was definitely very ominous looking,
Yeah.
It wasn't like the fire was 100 yards away, but it was just up over the hill, and it was definitely very ominous looking.
Yeah, we certainly did pack some weird shit at that moment.
Well, I imagine it's like
we're prepared to
just,
be
what do we grab?
Yeah, it was like, okay, valuables. I was like, okay, work computers, cameras, drone. We happened to just have a cooler full of, or we had gotten groceries, and I grabbed my Yeti, and I was like, okay, we can put the groceries in here.
Sure.
And then it was like, okay, what else is like valuable? And it was like bikes. That's expensive. Like we don't want to lose those. Then clothes and toiletries and stuff like that. And then it started to get weird where I like grabbed my golf clubs. So again, I was like, okay, valuable means expensive, and that's expensive. But I think looking back on it too, I think we were a little bit more frantic than we had to be, but better that than less than not enough.
Sure.
Because, when they said like, get out of your houses, like now it's like, we don't know. Does that mean the flames are at the top of the hill and it could rush down here in a minute? We hear about how fast wildfires can move. But I don't think after we got out, I had to drive all the way up to the roundabout and then back into town. All the neighbors went to Still West because one of the, that lot that's just plowed out. It's just moved around, but no building. Yeah. That's the owners of Still West. And so they all invited us over there. We sat on their back deck thing and watched the butte burn. Yeah. And it was just kind of like we all came together and we're just like holding like fingers crossed, like waiting to see if our neighborhood is going to burn down.
Yeah. I remember being I didn't leave because after you left, I headed up to the top to Spring Creek Ranch in Amangani and kind of stayed up there because I figured they were going to close that road and I didn't want to get locked out. And I think they actually closed the road 15 or 20 minutes after you and I got up here.
Yeah.
They weren't letting anyone else up. So I wanted to stay up here, and there was a point where, I was, you just have like a really good line of sight right there looking back over this direction, and the slurry bombers were coming in and making drops, over and over again. And I was making pictures over there. And at one point, I remember seeing the fire come around the corner, and it was pretty windy, and it blew up the ridge line. It came around the corner of Saddle Butte, and it blew up the ridge line. And I remember taking pictures of it, kind of saying over and over in my head, and I think out loud, I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Like, it's moving fast. And
Yeah.
it moved up that ridge line in a matter of only a few minutes. And I thought for sure some of the houses up on the butte were going to burn, but man, I think they did. I think the homes were pretty well managed with defensible space. And I think also Fire EMS did a pretty good job of knocking down what they could.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of different aspects, they had a lot going for them.
Yeah, we were doing the same thing from Still West, like, oh shit, because it was that space.
That had been crazy just watching it.
Yeah.
You're kind of like.
And we were renters, but we have renters insurance, so we were like a certain level of anxiety because of that. But then it's like the Teskies down here, they've lived here for like 20 years, and that's like their enormous, beautiful home. And there's a lot of big, beautiful homes on this, on this road, and so like that's like a whole nother level of like that's your life that you're watching maybe burn down
for sure. I mean, well, and
or even your life's work
from where you were. I mean, what was that like? Like, you're sitting there, and there's got to be this like element of like, I'm just powerless. There's nothing I can do. Yeah,
it is. It's not like I wouldn't call it like relaxing, but you're not like you're not anxious like you would be at work or something, right, where you're like, I know what to do, or I could do things to help the situation. You can't do anything at that point. So it's kind of just like sit to it. And just it's kind of just like sit back and watch the show. Yeah. Because like that slope where our road goes up, there's some big pine trees on the upper half of it. Those were like exploding.
Sure.
And it was just like this, I was looking at the pictures that I took. So I went around to that.
Yeah.
So if you swipe to like the newer ones, those are like the day after.
Right. Yeah, I remember you sent me these.
Yeah. And that just shows like that was from.
See, I didn't get to see all this. Like I say, I didn't want to. They were pulling water out of this. There's a pond down in Spring Gulch. They were pulling water out of that, and so I just wanted to stay up here just because I knew the fire was heading this direction, and I also knew that we had, another photographer on the other side, and he captured some amazing pictures. From a bunch of different angles. He was able to move around quite a bit, and really made some incredible stuff. And then I just happened to be at this angle, like high up where the aircraft were coming in.
Yeah, those pictures where they're dropping the red stuff.
Yeah,
so cool.
Yeah,
there's one where I think you took it. They're dropping it on this house.
Yep. Yeah, it came right down this ridge.
Yeah, and they had like we always walk up right to that corner, and they're really nice people too. And like they had red stuff like on their house.
And this was the one where like I saw the flames coming up right towards it, and I watched the fire burn all of this.
Yeah.
Like all up and around it. And I think the fire EMS had knocked down their yard a bit, and obviously this is a concrete barrier, but
so for the people just listening, we're looking at my phone. I took a picture the day after the big fire part. And there is one of the houses on our road. It's like 95% surrounded by black. So that means that I'll post that. I'll put the pictures on my story or something. That means that the fire, like actual flames, were basically surrounding the house. That house itself is actually like all stone on the outside. Mm-hmm. I mean, that helped it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was totally insane.
I shot a wedding just up the hill here, and I was kind of worried about that house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, that's a good point to be over here, because if it did come over and start getting houses, like you could get pictures you can see all 30 houses on the road from that spot up there where you're at.
Yeah, you could see pretty much everything up there.
Yeah, that would have been it. So moving on, what's it like working at a newspaper and trying to get people to read newspapers and then show their value in an age where like physical physical newspapers and magazines are like nobody's reading them except for in Jackson. Everyone reads the News and Guide.
Yeah.
Jackson's like the one little place where people actually read the newspaper.
Yeah.
What's that like? Just knowing what.
Yeah. So, Jackson's somewhat unique, and I wouldn't say that we're immune to the changes that are happening in the industry, and I don't even know if I would say that we're insulated from it.
Mm-hmm.
We've definitely been affected by it, but the one thing that there's a couple things is we're entirely local.
Mm-hmm.
We're hyper local, and everything that we have, everything that we do, almost everything we do has a Teton County, Wyoming connection to it. Okay. We understand that there's obviously communities outside of Jackson, Teton Valley and Alpine. We have a lot of commuters, and a lot of our workforce live outside of the valley. I live in Victor.
Yeah.
I'm one of them, and so occasionally we cover stories